Let's for the listeners who may not have had an opportunity yet, or kind of didn't pay attention to that portion of the speech he was giving to wealthy donors at a billionaire's house, and I thought it was funny because in terms of thinking of The Help, that popular movie here in the United States among African Americans, and looks like The Help secretly recorded Romney and held on to it and is now doing damage. So I thought that was interesting. But this is Romney's peace plan for the Middle East.
I'm torn by two perspectives in this regard. One is the one which I've had for some time, which is that the Palestinians have no interest whatsoever in establishing peace, and that the pathway to peace is almost unthinkable to accomplish. Now, why do I say that? Some might say, well, just let the Palestinians have the West Bank and have security and set up a separate nation for the Palestinians. And then come a couple of thorny questions. And I don't have a map here to look at the geography, but the border between Israel and the West Bank is obviously right there, right next to Tel Aviv, which is the financial capital, the industrial capital of Israel, the center of Israel. It's what the border would be, maybe 7 miles from Tel Aviv to what would be the West Bank. The other side of the West Bank, the other side of what would be this new Palestinian state would either be Syria at one point or Jordan. And of course the Iranians would want to do through the West Bank exactly what they did through Lebanon, what they did in Gaza, which is the Iranians who want to bring missiles and armament into the West Bank and potentially threaten Israel. So Israel, of course, would have to say, that can't happen. We've got to keep the Iranians from bringing weaponry into the West Bank. Well, that means that who? The Israelis are going to patrol the border between Jordan, Syria, and this new Palestinian nation? Well, the Palestinians would say, no way. We're an independent country. You can't guard our border with other Arab nations. And then how about the import? How about flying into this Palestinian nation? Are we going to allow military aircraft to come in and weaponry to come in? And if not, who's going to keep it from coming in? Well, the Israelis. Well, the Palestinians are going to say we're not an independent nation if Israel is able to come in and tell us where we can land at our airport. These are problems that are very hard to solve. Right? And I look at the Palestinians not wanting to see peace anyway for political purposes, committed to the destruction and elimination of Israel.
And that last part there that kind of trailed off, he said that he just used a broad stroke, said the Palestinians do not recognize the existence of Israel and want to destroy them. Now, I don't pretend to be an expert on the Palestinian people and their government. I know Hamas has won some seats, representative seats, and then you had a Palestinian Authority. And so I don't know if that's part of their official party platform or not. But then there's also the thing about propaganda. How I've heard a lot of people say, they're translating it wrong. They're saying Israel shouldn't exist because it's illegally set up by the United Nations. But the number one question is, do the Palestinians want peace? And so, Ms. El Fattah, what do the Palestinians want?
Well, Scotty, let me say this first of all to start, because we don't have to make this any more complicated than it is, and we don't have to play their game. And one of the things that they have succeeded at most in their campaigns of lies and bullshit about Palestine is to perplex people and make them think that this is an insurmountable conflict and crisis. It is not. It is a case of European colonialism that expanded into the Muslim world. Just like the European colonialism came into the United States and wiped out the Native Americans, just like they attempted to do in Latin America, just like they did in parts of Africa. They colonized. This is their methodology throughout history and time: colonization, enslavement, and domination, ethnic cleansing, and genocide. That has been their program. It's not anything different. The situation in Palestine is just another installment of that. If you remember, when the Dutch Boers went into South Africa and established their apartheid regime, they did it under the claim that they were a lost tribe of Israel and that South Africa was their biblical homeland. They used almost the exact same, to the letter, language that the Ashkenazi Jews out of Europe used to lay claim to Palestine. According to every international law, the occupation of Palestine is illegal. It is illegal. You cannot occupy someone else's country and establish settlements there, bring your people and import people there while it's simultaneously using every method that you can, covert and overt, to wipe out and ethnically cleanse and kill the indigenous people and drive them out. This is patently illegal. By any law of God and man, it is wrong and illegal. It is also immoral. Now, what do the Palestinians want? What would any human being want? They want it to end. They want their land back. They want it to end. Do the Palestinians want peace? Well, let me ask you this. Who are the Palestinians killing? Are Palestinians running into Israel, or what they call Israel, up on the settlers in there, killing them? Do you see Palestinians mounting any attacks on Israelis? Do you see any Palestinian helicopters? Do you see, the Palestinian people are not doing anything to Israel. Nothing. Now let me ask you this. Is this peacemaking? Is routine helicopter attacks, assassinations, targeted assassinations, and the illegal economic embargo of Gaza, continue illegal settlement building in the West Bank, routine rounding up and detaining Palestinians and torturing them, killing them? Is that peace? Is that peacemaking? See, this is just like what Orwell said. No, just like what Orwell said, the language will change. Everything that they say, you better check what it means, because they will have you, and Malcolm X said this, they will have you thinking that the victim is the perpetrator and that the perpetrator is the victim.
Well, Ms. El Fattah, I have a question and a point that you made that is interesting when you look at Mitt Romney and his religion. I will have to look that up. And because I didn't know that the Boers, the Dutch Boers, you said, claimed that they were setting up some holy land for white people in South Africa. They claimed that they were a lost tribe, yes, and that South Africa was their biblical homeland. But isn't that also what Joseph Smith did and the Mormons?
Well, I can't speak to that.
Well, yes, it is. I can speak. I can.
I don't know.
I can't speak to that.
But I will say this. They didn't for years. They didn't believe that the black man was as evolved as the white man.
Right, but I'm saying in terms of what's going on with the Palestinians, you talked about colonialism, and you mentioned how the common thread of using religion in both South Africa and in Israel. But the Mormons also did the same thing. They claimed that actually, that they were a lost tribe of Israel, and that this is where, Jesus is going to appear during the rapture. And so they took, look at all the land that they hold. Utah is a very large place. And so I'm just saying, it's also in Romney's religion. If we want to try to understand his mindset and the mindset of these people that we're speaking to, they can all relate. They look at Israel. They have these, people want to talk about Muslim extremists, but you have Christian extremists. And
you have extremism. We don't even have to look at groups of people. Extremism is a human phenomenon. We have people that take more extreme views, who view life very black and white. We have people who always feel that they are being victimized and threatened and that they can't survive if they're not overly aggressive. You know, you look at Israel, everybody either has to be dead or in jail for them to feel secure. Their whole issue with the United States and Europe is that, you know, you have to make us feel secure. Their whole argument with all of the Arab governments in the Muslim world is that you have to make sacrifices in order to make us feel secure. Meantime, they're destabilizing the whole world. If people look at how they are pushing this thing for war with Iran, which everyone, even Israel's own military advisors and intelligence, everyone knows that an attack on Iran is going to be a world war. It is going to be a world war.
On that issue, I was taking notes while he was speaking, and this is a common Republican talking point, but the Iranians will put weapons in Palestine. Okay, so my response to that would be, well, would it matter? I mean, certainly the Iranians have weaponry if they wanted to attack Israel to hit them from where they are. They don't need to play the whole Cuba Missile Crisis scam. They don't need to put that into Palestine. And then also, the state of Palestine shouldn't be able to arm itself for self-defense. So would they feel better if the weapons were bought from the Chinese or the Russians? I mean, this is really a ridiculous point.
That's why they continue to deny Palestine statehood. And the first thing we need to recognize is that Palestine exists. Palestine has existed for centuries. The Romans called that area Palestine. Palestine exists. It is illegally occupied by a political and military entity called Israel. So when people say, well, we need to establish a Palestinian state, it is almost, in my opinion, kind of counterproductive. What we need to do is to liberate Palestine. We need to, if the Zionist government or entity in Israel does not shut itself down, peacefully dismantle and move out of Palestine, then the Palestinian people should be able to exercise their rights under the Geneva Convention to do what they have to do to encourage that entity to move. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that Palestinians want to ethnically cleanse all of the Jews out of Palestine? No, it doesn't. And as a matter of fact, most of or all of the factions in Palestine, the organized factions, as I understand it, have made it very clear that the non-Zionist Jews who are able to renounce Zionism, which is Jewish supremacism, and who are able to live peacefully as equals and coexist with the Palestinians, they've been made welcome to stay.
I mean, didn't they do that in those thousands of years that you were speaking of earlier?
They were there.
Didn't they coexist peacefully before the UN created Israel?
Yes. The problem between Palestine and Israel doesn't have anything to do with religion. What it has to do is with Zionism. Jews and Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, Christians all lived in that land, and they all coexisted in that land for centuries. You have to listen to some of the family stories, particularly of the Orthodox Jews that are part of the movement called Natura Carte, when they talk about how their families reminisce about how before Zionism came into the land, how they used to be neighbors, Arabs and Jews and Muslims and Christians. They used to babysit one another's children. They coexisted just like we here in the United States coexist with one another. All of us can say we have Jewish friends, we have Christian friends, we have friends who are atheists, we have friends who don't even deal with the whole concept of religion, but we can still be neighbors and live peacefully, and we can still be friends. Palestine used to be the same way until they injected Jewish supremacism and this Talmudic idea of Jewish supremacy over all other human beings and the right to dominate and to live according to their law and to thumb their nose at everyone else's law, which is why Israel does not abide by international law, which is why Israel has never kept any of its agreements. I'll give you an example. A group of Palestinians and Israelis got together and established something that they called the Oslo Agreement, which became the premise for the original or the initial peace process under Bill Clinton. One of the tenets of the Oslo Accord was that until everything was resolved, including what they had called these final status issues, which were supposedly the most complicated issues surrounding the occupation. Until that was resolved, all settlement building was supposed to stop. There was more settlement building during the Oslo peace process than there was when there was no peace process. People ask, how can that happen? Well, go back and look at what the Talmud says. It says that they don't have to honor agreements with non-Jews. It says that they don't have to be honest in negotiation with you if they feel that it's to their advantage. I don't want to go through,
So
all
you're
of
saying
the
that's what the government leaders and the political forces that control practice. Because I am familiar with the Talmud, and so I can attest that the things you just said that's in there, or one of the tenets of it, is true. I've read that for myself. And so you're saying, there is and correct me if I'm wrong, that there is a small percentage of people in power that's practicing Talmudic principles.
Well, that is why, and the way that the Orthodox Jews explain it is that their religion has been hijacked. That these people are not interested in Jewishness or in Judaism, and they are not even religious people. But they saw that it was to their advantage to claim that, because how can you say that we have a right to be here because it's our biblical homeland, and then say that we're atheists, that we don't even believe in God? So they have taken on this whole cover of religiosity because it has to be there to substantiate their claim. But when you look at how they act, and you don't have to be biased one way or another, you can objectively look at the things they do and see that that has nothing to do with God. Whether or not you believe in Jesus or set all that aside, just imagine God and look at what they do. Is that representative of God? Here in the United States, we have Christian evangelicals and Zionists like John Hagee who say, if the Christian doesn't honor and worship the Jew, then God is going to curse him.
But doesn't he own property? Wasn't he given special status to purchase property in Israel?
I have no idea.
I do. I do. So, you have to follow the money. You have to look at all things. You have to gather intelligence. And that's gathering different pieces of information to get a picture of what's really going on. And so I can say that I've read from credible sources reports about the money, the financial incentive for him to take that view. He has some sort of theme park or something there.
Right, yeah. Is that just for the everyday Christian person who is not that sophisticated politically and who is not able to access that kind of information, or who is not interested, doesn't have time, they will make their analysis based on a very, very simple observation that nothing that those people are doing there is representative of Judaism or representative of God. I'll give you an example. That entity that they call Israel has one of the highest rates of human trafficking in the world, illegal human trafficking of women in the world. It has a huge drug problem. It has the highest amount of prostitution, probably, of any country in the world, and prostitution is all but legal in Jerusalem. In Palestine, in Israel. In fact, the prostitution was so bad that the people in the parts of the city that weren't getting the tourism and making the money, they had started making cutouts, life-size cutouts of hookers, and putting them on their streets and corners so people would come into their area to buy sexual relationships with women, hoping that they would stay and also buy fruit and other things that they were selling out of the market.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to bring the traffic.
Is that, yeah. Now, people who are really Jewish people who practice Judaism will tell you that that's not Judaism. That's not representative of a people that God has chosen, how they would be living and what they would be doing. So we see the reality. We have to step beyond all of the rhetoric. We have to look deeper, and we have to look at reality, and we have to use our own minds and our own standards of morality and our own understanding of what is right and what is wrong. And then we have to look and we have to make judgments. They say the Palestinians don't want peace, but what are the Palestinians doing? They're not doing anything. They're suffering. Who is the one bombing, killing, ethnically cleansing, desecrating holy sites, bulldozing people's houses, destroying mosques, allowing their settlers to vandalize, run over people with cars, shoot, kill whoever they want with absolute impunity?
They're not in a position of power to offer peace. Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay, so are those people acting peacefully? No. No one in their right mind thinks that Israel is acting peacefully. So when Mitt Romney comes and says, well, the Palestinians don't want peace, that's an old game. And it's for people who are not paying attention. Because anyone who's paying attention can look clearly and realize that if someone is not assaulting you, attacking you, killing you, bulldozing your homes, then they're living at peace with you. The Palestinians are living at peace with the Israelis in spite of the fact that their homes are being bulldozed, they're being terrorized by the settlers. All of the settlers have weapons. Palestinians don't have any weapons because the law won't allow them to have weapons because they've been set up by the international community to be ethnically cleansed, and that's what's happening there, ethnic cleansing and genocide. And we don't have to be international lawyers or rocket scientists to recognize ethnic cleansing and genocide when we see it. Genocide is a legal definition of a phenomenon. It is not based on how many people you are killing. It says that when you are seeking to eradicate through murder a group of people based on their race, their religion, their ethnicity, their nationality, even their political opinion, that's a genocide. We know why Israel is being allowed to kill Palestinians, to put them under so much psychological pressure that they will either leave or become dysfunctional. We know why they're being allowed to embargo and starve them to death and deny them medicines, why their hospitals shut down, why people on dialysis are dying because they can't get medication. In the dialysis machines, the parts and things break down. We know what that is. And the reason that the rest of the world, the UN, the United States, and the Europe say nothing and do nothing is because most people follow their lead. If they're not outraged, if they're not angry, if they're not doing anything about it, if the UN Security Council is not setting up a no-fly zone over Gaza, then there must not be a problem. So Mitt Romney can stand up and say, oh, those people, they don't want peace. Just like Milosevic said about the Bosnian people, oh, we're killing them because they're Muslim and they don't believe in separation of church and state. But whether they believe in church and separation of church and state or not, they're not killing you.